for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. Jimmy Murphy and Pierre McGuire on a on-campus Friday. Pierre and we're going to be psyched to welcome in a few minutes the head coach of the Providence College Friars, Nate Lehman. One of the, in my eyes, Pierre, kind of an underrated guy, if you ask me. I mean, I know people that know college hockey well like you and are inside the game more know who he is. But in general, I don't think he gets enough love. And right now he has his team 10th in the pairwise, heading into Maine tonight and tomorrow night with a chance to leapfrog the Black Bears in the standings as well. So a big weekend for the Providence Friars, and we're psyched to have on head coach Nate Lehman today.
Before we get to Coach Lehman, I just want to apologize to our viewers and our listeners for yesterday. I don't know what happened, but obviously I wasn't able to be on the entire show with Gord Miller, but I could hear you and Gord, Jimmy, and I thought it was outstanding conversation, and Gord brought a lot to the party. So I'm really grateful that he actually appeared, and Jimmy, you did an outstanding job in light of the fact that I wasn't able to join in. So I feel guilt. Now, all that being said, I agree with what you said about Coach Lehman. Consistency is a big part of being a coach. Mm-hmm. And if you look at when he started at Union and the consistency that he had there, then you look at the consistency that he's had since he's been at Providence College, winning a national championship in 2015. Yep. But he's been consistent. He's won a World Junior Gold. He's done a lot of really high-end things as a coach at a lot of different levels, lower than obviously the NHL or the American Hockey League, but he's done it, Jimmy. And I think what he's done more than anything else, when there was a little bit of disarray in the Providence College hockey program, he put Providence College hockey back on the map. A lot like what Ben Barr, who they're playing against this weekend, has done at the University of Maine. A lot like what Greg Carville has done, obviously, at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, your alma mater, like what Mike Cavanaugh has done at the University of Connecticut. So there are a lot of coaches, I think, in Hockey East that have done a really nice job rekindling the energy for their respective programs and universities.
For sure. You beat me to it there. I was going to draw those analogies, and it's great that they're doing this too, because, for those who aren't familiar with Providence College, they've got a wealth of history when it comes to college hockey. I mean, they've always been a big college hockey institution. Of course, one of your favorite people in the business, Coach Lamorello, started off there in Providence. So it's a strong tradition there, and it's good to see them doing well again. And I look at it too, Pierre, the Hockey East in general. I'm just very impressed this year with them, with the amount of talent they've put forward, the competition they're having. So it's a great conference to be in. And Providence and Maine should be a great one tonight.
Well, this whole weekend will be great because the people up in Orono, Maine are highly addicted to successful and fun hockey. And that building is going to rock up there at Alphon Arena. And Coach Lehman is going to get his first taste of it this year. Obviously, he's had a big taste of it over the course of his career. But I think, Jimmy, you talk about Hockey East. I think all the leagues, if you look at the standings in all the leagues,
they're all compact.
It's unbelievable. This is one of those years where the bottom team can beat a top team. And I wouldn't want to be one of those top teams going into the playoffs because, as we know, sometimes things can turn real quickly in college hockey. Providence College is a great example. In 1985, when Steve Sterling was coaching there, he had a guy like Chris Terreri in goal. He had a guy like Tim Army up front. They had all kinds of success. They go to the national championship game. They lose to RPI in Joe Louis Arena. But, again, it's a Providence College tie-in. They got hot because Chris Terreri just started going crazy in goal. Timmy Army started playing unbelievable hockey. And then all of a sudden, the rest of the guys follow, and they go to the, Stanley, or they go to the NBA final, which is amazing. It's unbelievable. So that's what can happen. And I think this is one of those years in college hockey. It'll be interesting to hear what Coach Lehman has to say. But this is one of those years in college hockey where I think anybody could win. I really mean that. In the league and also in the NCAA tournament.
And if I'm not mistaken, Pierre, were the old Providence Friars in those years, they were wearing the Cooperalls, weren't they?
They wore the Cooperall. You're darn right.
I knew it.
Cooperalls.
I remember those pictures. And that was, didn't Chris Terreri, didn't have that game. It was like a triple overtime or something.
Michigan, I know one thing. He did unbelievable things at Munn Arena at Michigan State. They upset them. Then they played Boston College, and they upset them. And everybody's like,
that was the one I'm thinking of. Yeah.
When is this going to stop? Exactly. So, again, I had just started my coaching career back then. And it's interesting because right after Coach Sterling took his team to the NCAA final, he left Providence to become the
Mhm.
athletic director and head coach at Babson College, which is at that time an amazing Division II hockey school. And I went with him to be his assistant. And one of the reasons why I went there, first of all, I really liked the way Coach Stoning presented things. But the other part was because he was the athletic director, and this is for the young coaches out there, I had a chance to get a lot of reps
Yeah.
because my boss was also the athletic director. So I had a chance to actually do practical coaching, not just recruiting, which is what a lot of
Good
assistants have
experience.
to do. So it was an amazing experience. It really was.
That's great. And I'm looking right now, just checking, Nate Lehman's background as I was researching before the show. And he actually did some head coaching up your way, right where you are tonight, right, Pierre?
Yeah, at Union College, he certainly did. And this has been a really strong program here for a real long time at Union College. They obviously won the national championship here not too many years ago with Rick Bennett as a head coach and a guy by the name of Shane Gossespear, who was pretty darn good.
That's right.
Pretty darn good. He ended up being the MVP of the tournament. And I think they actually call it the most outstanding player of the tournament, but right in the building where he turned pro in Philadelphia. They've had some really good players come through. The first real great Union player that I remember was Steve Baker. And Steve Baker ended up being a starting goalie for the New York Rangers way back in the 1970s. And that's, I can tell you right now, Ned Harkness was building this program here at Union. And it was huge. It was a Goliath of a program.
That's
it's an
awesome.
outstanding college and university right in the heart of Schenectady, which is surrounded by General Electric and General Motors. So there's so much to do here. And, you look at RPI just down the road and Union, they're both mathematics schools and engineering schools. So for a lot of the students that go to those two schools, they get jobs when they're done. Right here in the area because there's just so much employment opportunity.
Good stuff. Well, before we get to Coach Lehman, I just want to touch on a couple NHL things, Pierre. And you and I were talking a bit off the air before this afternoon. And, of course, one of them, the game that I saw last night, the Vancouver Canucks and the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins, you predicted it, just answered the bell after that stinker against the Calgary Flames on Tuesday. And, it was just one of those, like, they had to have this one. Not just because of who they were playing, Pierre, but as you pointed out, just they got embarrassed in front of their home fans. And these guys have pride. And when something like that happens, you want to answer the bell.
It's amazing. You and I talked about it before the game actually started. We were texting back and forth. Brad Marchand grabbed the bull by the horns. He just took the game over right from the start.
That's it.
And you read the quotes after the game, whether it's from Hampus Lindholm or whether it's from Matty Grizzlick, whomever you want to read their quotes, they all said the same thing. Brad took the game over. He did right away. So when you have an impact player like that that's wearing a letter on his sweater, everybody else follows. It doesn't take a lot. It does
and
not.
You could see it happen. Well, we'll get back to that maybe after. We do have head coach Nate Lehman join us right now from the Providence Friars. And I believe he's up in Orono, Maine. Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Good, guys. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, it's our pleasure. Thanks for taking the time on a game day. And welcome to On Campus Friday here on the eye test. We're really enjoying as we get coaches on every week. And we're psyched to have you on here. And Coach, as we were just discussing about your team, you guys have a huge opportunity ahead of you this weekend against UMaine in terms of the standings. How's the team feeling as they get ready for these two big games?
I think we're feeling good. I mean, we're back to being a healthy group for the first time since I think the second or third week of the season. We do have one boy that's out sick tonight, but other than that, I mean, we were able to practice with everybody this week. And you're coming up to Maine; they're undefeated at home. This is a great opportunity for us to send the message that we want to send of being the team that we want to be.
Nate, you really have been so consistent since you've been at Providence College. Obviously, I know about your record at Union as well and all the great things you've done in college hockey. But I have to ask you, how important is it for Hockey East and college hockey in particular to have a great program at Maine with all these fans coming to Alphon Arena? Does it really help Hockey East and all of college hockey?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. I think the fan turnout over the last 2 years within our league has seen a huge uptick. And, not only Maine, but Boston College, ourselves, Boston University. There's the buzz about college hockey is back. And that's a good thing for all of us. Now, referencing Maine coming up here, even in their lean years, this was a tough place to play, you know, because if they have 3,000 people in this building, it seems like they're all right on top of you. Now tonight, I know it's a sellout and it's a whiteout and everything. So it's going to be a great environment. It was funny. I was thinking earlier, no matter what, we're going to grow. Like our team will grow, and you have to find ways to keep growing as a group throughout the year. And this weekend will test us, and I know we're going to grow.
And speaking
Yeah,
of
I'm just going to throw it. I'm just going to
ahead.
throw it to Coach for one more second. I was up there a month ago watching Colgate play at Maine, and I would just tell you right now, I've been in, as you know, around hockey for a long time. That building is back. It's alive. It was sold out then. The hardest thing about going there is freezing, walking from your parking spot to the rink. It's unbelievable how far you have to park to get into the rink. That being said, I love what you just said about Boston College, BU, your program. Even Northeastern BU the other night, they had 4,000 people at Matthews Arena, which doesn't happen very often at Matthews, as you know. So is there one thing that's got college hockey back in your view?
Well, I think part of it is the number of first-round draft picks in our league and the number of draft picks overall. I think people are seeing that this is, a very direct path to the NHL, or they're seeing the next stars for the NHL. And I think the players in our league at the level of talent in our league is one thing. And I think just post-COVID, I think the whole school spirit thing is very much back on campus.
Mm-hmm.
How did you? It's great you brought that up, actually, Coach. What was your goal navigating through that whole period? A horrible thing for everybody in the world, but just as a coach, being in touch with your players is so important, and helping them mentally as well. What was like your approach to that as it went on?
I don't know if I'd recommend my approach because I look back on it now, and it was frustrating because you just kept wanting to get going and wanting to get going and wanting to get back to normal. And the more and more that you're around it, you saw maybe it doesn't affect this age group as much as some other age groups. Now, I was fortunate enough to coach the World Junior team also during that, so that broke it up for me. Being able to go in the bubble there, getting back to our college season, and then I did the World Senior Championship also in Latvia. That put us right back in a bubble. So it was a long. I was with 3 different teams in the bubble, in different bubbles and different scenarios. Looking back on it now, I give the kids a lot of credit because they had to just keep battling and staying with it. Have patience through it all. I mean, I think it was frustrating on everyone, but I also give our school a lot of credit and our league a lot of credit in that we kept kids playing and we kept them developing. Like it wasn't a lost year. I think we still played like 25 games, then playoffs. So, it wasn't all lost. We were able to keep moving and keep going and continue the development process for the kids.
Speaking of development, 2015, amazing year for you in Providence College, the first ever NCAA championship. But one of the things, and I watched all those games back then, I was broadcasting for NBC, but I was still near and dear to loving college hockey. Jake Wallman's a freshman playing in the NHL and playing really well. Nola Chari playing in the NHL very well. Brandon Tanev playing in the NHL, playing really well. Kevin Rooney just got called up by Calgary, playing in the NHL. Mark Jankowski spent a lot of time in the American League, but also in the NHL. Coach, developing that roster, how'd you do it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, those guys all came in. That was all part of our first recruiting class. And all those guys came in with something to prove and a chip on the shoulder and very much like wanting to be part of building a program, wanting to be part of proving people wrong. I'll be honest, I was hard on that group, but they had a lot of potential and you knew it. And, there's John Gillies was in that group also. He's played in the NHL.
Right.
John Gilmore was in that group. He played in the NHL. I think from our national championship team, I think we have 8 or 9 guys. I always look back at a picture. There's a picture in our office suites of the bench, the moment that we won it. And I always look back and laugh at all the NHLers I have on the bench, and who I had on the ice for sure. Who was on the bench, for the last 30, 40 seconds. But, we recruited a good group with a lot to prove. And they developed and they kept working and they kept developing. And hats off to those guys. I was really proud of that group and proud to be a part of that group.
Jimmy, let me ask Coach one follow-up.
Yeah, sure.
So we call this show the eye test for a reason. When you recruit, how important is the eye test?
I think the eye test is everything, especially as a head coach recruiting. That's one thing that, your assistants can go out and really like a guy, and then you go out and you see him. And, you as the head coach, you have to have this vision of what they're going to become. You really, in your head, you have to say, all right, I know what that young man can be. I know what he can become. Now I have trust in him. Now I have faith in him. Let's get this guy versus maybe going out and seeing someone not have a good game or show bad body language or, get thrown out of a game for a dumb reason or something. And then, as the head coach, you're like, I got to go out and see that kid again because the taste I have in my mouth right now of that boy isn't good enough, that I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt all the time when he struggles. Because every kid that gets to this level hits adversity. We have a couple freshmen that are coming out of it now, like they're good players, but they have to learn to play and then they'll score, and it's like that at every level. Like I hear the American League guys, say that about our guys. In the American League. I hear the NHL guys say that about our guys, so it's like that at every level. There's a step, there's adversity. And, when you guys talk about eye test for me, I think about recruiting and man, if they don't pass my eye test, I don't know if they can be a Friar. I don't know if when they hit that adversity that I'm really going to be behind them. So that's kind of the eye test to me.
Jimmy, now you know why the coaches won, okay? I'll just tell you that right now.
It's funny, Coach, you were just talking about, that scoring isn't everything. I know, and it's tough with young kids, right? Because everyone wants the glory and all that. And I was literally, just before we came on, I was writing a story on Anthony Richard, who just got called up from the Providence Bruins. And he said literally almost the exact same words. He said, I always thought, I had to score. But once I realized that if I played a 200-foot game, and even more specifically defensively, the offense would actually come. It would translate from that. And so I'm asking you, how great does that feel when you hear a kid say that, when you hear a player say that?
Well, they buy into winning and they buy into a team at that point. They care, at least they've learned the lessons that they care more about the team and the team success, what it takes for the team success than maybe their individual success. I always think guys come in and they score early and then some of that adversity hits. And then then they have to learn that 90% of this game, I'm not going to have the puck. So what am I doing to help our team win? What am I doing to get myself in better positions to score? How am I driving the net? How am I working back? The game is so fast right now. A lot of your, I would say just as much of your offense comes out of good defense and breaking things up and catching teams out of their structure than it does breaking teams down when they're in their structure. So, teaching the kids, that and that there's much more to the game. But that's a big time quote by him because to me that tells me that he cares more about a team.
Yep.
Coach, we had Brad Berry on last week, the great coach from the University of North Dakota, who I know you know very well. And we asked him about the potential for major junior players being eligible to play college hockey. How would that affect your recruitment, and how would that affect Providence College hockey?
That's a good question because it's something that I've been delving into for like 4 or 5 years. It's not new to me, the topic. I sat on a committee with the NHL 4 or 5 years ago, and this was talked about for a year. But to answer your question, I don't know how it would affect. I mean, college hockey's in a really good place right now. I think it shows in our World Junior appearances for the U.S. team. I think it shows in that 30% of the NHL is from college hockey. I think we're developing kids really well. And I think they're getting educations and they're having great experiences. I've always thought of it from the NHL perspective. Like I think the NHL needs as many 19-year-olds playing as possible in the world. Like not just in the United States, not just for the best product to be in the NHL, they want as many 19-year-olds as playing as possible. So they want college hockey to be different than major junior because there's two different paths. There's
Right.
a path for I always think of like a Patrick Kane who, like he probably needed half of a season of major junior and then he's going to be a star in the NHL. And then there's a path for Brandon Tanev who at 19 years old scored 30 points, a whopping 30 points in Surrey in the British Columbia League,
I do know.
and he needed a longer runway. So, there's a lot, it's being spoken about now, but what many people don't realize is it's a very lengthy process to get anything changed within the NCAA. So I know, some people have brought it up nationally that this is happening. It's a long way from it happening. How would it affect Providence? Maybe the talent pool is bigger. Maybe the high end talent pool isn't as big. Are we recruiting in Flint? Are we recruiting in Sault Ste. Marie? Are we recruiting in London? I don't know the answers to those questions. Would American kids go up to the CHL? I don't know. I just know that I feel like college hockey's in the best place it's been in since I've been in the sport.
Yeah.
For me, I like that there's two paths for kids to choose. I like that. I like the fact that, in the NCAA, we're doing a really good job right now. So, for me, I'm kind of like a status quo guy. Let's keep it the same. This is something that we can approach again in 3-4 years and look at it. And maybe, secondary or other thoughts come up at that time.
Coach, for some of our viewers out there that aren't too familiar with Providence hockey this year, but they're going to get a chance now with all these conference tournaments coming up. There'll be a lot more things televised nationally and up in Canada. Who are some players you would advise them to check out that maybe fly under the radar for you guys?
We have Riley Duran is a late round pick of the Bruins. He's a really good player. He was on the U.S. World Junior team. Chase Yoder was on the national team, U.S. national team. He's a very good player. We have Hudson Malinowski, who's a freshman. He's a Toronto draft pick. And we have Yaroslav Shemlauer, and he's a Czech player that's played in 2 World Juniors. And he's 6'5". He's a Rangers pick. Wow. He had been out for 7 weeks with an injury. He got cut by a skate and it cut a tendon. So this is the first weekend he's back. We're excited about that. But we're a depth team. I mean, we have, we have a lot of good players. So I don't know if I'm doing my team justice by just pointing out like 4 or 5, to be honest with you, because, for our team, I really feel like, any one of our lines could have 2-3 goals a night. And it's a matter of seeing who's going, who's rolling, who has the most confidence with the puck that night.
Jimmy, the one thing I'd say to back Coach's point up, I think Providence does it as well by committee than any other team in college hockey right now. Right, Coach? I think you'd have to say you need to score by committee to be competitive.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said at the beginning of the year, I don't know if we have a 25-goal scorer, but at the end of the year, we're going to have 6 or 7, 15, 16, 17, 18 goal scorers.
I totally concur. So, Jimmy, I got to ask the coach.
Yeah.
I got to ask the coach this. When I went to college, I played football, hockey, and baseball, and one of my football coaches, a man by the name, well, I'm going to let you try to figure it out because you're both in the Hall of Fame at Cortland. See if you can figure that out. But anyways, I'll pose the question. How's a guy, a Red Dragon from Cortland State, work his way into college coaching?
Well, that's a story on itself. I don't know how much time you guys have, but basically I was done with school. I was, I was finishing at Cortland, had some great teammates. And I was a biology major. I went up to the University of Maine to do my master's degree in biology, and the school was paying for it. I actually had a grant through the government, the Maine state government, that was going to pay for me to do some research on some contaminants. And I was up there about a month and a half, and I went to get beers one night with some other grad students, and they couldn't stop talking about science. And, I can just remember I was sitting at the table. I just remember they're way more passionate about this than me.
Yeah.
And long story short, I went in and I met with Sean Walsh. I cold called Sean Walsh. He took the call. He said, "Come in and meet with me." I met with him. I joined their staff for like a year and a half, and we won the national championship. So I got my master's degree, and I was looking at, a possible job in Missouri, or I was looking at going into coaching, and there was an opening at Harvard. So, Boston was it. And I was following my passion, basically, I mean, that's long stories. I think we all probably have those moments where we go like, wow, this is really my passion, and you really figure it out. And that was kind of for me, sitting around a table talking about science. I was like, man, I'll do it during the day, but
the name, I had 2 football coaches in college. The name of the Cortland Hall of Famer is David Urich.
Okay.
And he's one of the iconic, not just football coaches of United States football, but also lacrosse. He's a legendary lacrosse coach. And so I know you're both in the Cortland Hall of Fame. And the other coach that I played for, and I'm not kidding around, Coach, you talked about having beers with the science students. His name was Jack Daniels. I am not kidding you. And Coach Daniels made a huge impact on my life. I'm forever grateful for having played for him. So, yeah.
That is the nice thing about college too. You're talking about the major, junior, and the college. And I think, the college coaches, you develop such a relationship with the kids because you see so much growth over the 4 years. And it's not only on the ice, it's more of the stuff, what's going on off the ice and their growth in their lives and what you can help them with or what they need help with. So it's, that's a fun story,
Yeah, Coach, we were just saying, I mean, before you came out, just the parity all over college hockey right now. I'm looking at this pairwise rankings, and I mean, I think there's 4 teams tied for the same spot right now, and it's just, it's unreal. What have you enjoyed about, knowing they say it in football all the time, right? Any given Sunday, but any given night in college hockey, what's that like?
Especially our league. I mean, and we've learned a couple lessons, the hard way there of really beating a team up on Friday and then not coming back with a great effort and getting stung. So, but that's, as I told our group last week, the teams that separate themselves are the team that can win on Saturdays in college hockey. So I told our team last week, 30 teams win on Friday. How many of those 30 come again and win on Saturday?
Yeah,
and the parity in college hockey has never been better. Part of it is the rules, with this transfer and the 50-year COVID. So that's really made, the parity tight. But it's also great. And every night it's a really hard fought game. A couple bounces here, a couple bounces there. But again, back to the NHL thing, I think that's why kids are developing so well in college hockey right now is that, it's every game means so much, almost like a playoff atmosphere where, hits have to be finished and structure has to be played and specialty teams have to be good, and kids have to be sharp.
Well, one of those guys that's really sharp right now plays for one of your rivals, Macklin Celebrini. How much do you have to game plan to be ready to play against Macklin?
We have not played them yet. We played BC 3 times. We have BU 3 times within the next month. And so we have Maine this week, and then we come back. We have 2 against BU. I watched the Bean Pot, and I was pretty impressed with Macklin. I saw him in Chicago a couple times recruiting, but I don't want to give too much away about game plan, but he's a really good college hockey player, and I think a lot of what BU does, he's the guy driving it.
Yeah, he was something last week,
which is amazing for a 17-year-old. We talk about how hard it is to score in college hockey. This guy's got over 20 goals already as a 17-year-old in college hockey. And you coached against Brady Tkachuk, so you know how good Brady was. Brady only had 8 goals his freshman year.
Yeah,
his first year in the NHL, he had 23.
Yeah, I still feel we had 2 defensemen. We played BU in the championship game of Hockey East that year, And Vinny Darnay was on our team. He plays for Edmonton now. We had another defenseman by the name of Jacob Bryson.
He's in Buffalo.
Yeah, it was in Buffalo. And Brady Tkachuk and Jordan Grenway were on the BU team. And we dominated the first period of the game and didn't score. And then they come out, and Quinny has them chipping and slashing. So every time they get the puck, they chip and slash to make Bryson go back for the puck.
Oh, God.
And he took so many hits from Brady Tkachuk and Jordan Gridaway that night. I almost carried him to the bus, the poor kid. You know, I can still remember him going back for the pucks, and I'm on the bench just kind of squinting, going like, oh, you know. Yeah, so, you know, there's some good players that have gone through. Macklin is certainly, you know, he's just like Cale Makar, and you know, he's going to play a long time for the NHL, and you know, hopefully he can look back on his time in Hockey East and say it helped develop him, and he remembers all the rivalries and the good games.
For sure. Well, Coach, we appreciate you taking the time. I know you gotta get to the rink soon, so we'll let you go. But good luck this weekend, and I hope to see you around the rink soon.
It's good seeing you guys, and thanks for having me, and hope to see you along the way.
Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it, Nate. Take care. Thank you.
Providence College Friars, big 2-game set up in Orono, Maine against the Maine Black Bears. Can actually leapfrog them in the standings. So a definite one if you can watch it and catch some of that. It'll be good games to watch.
So let's just look at the modern era. So I'm going to start in 1955 going forward. That's what I consider the modern era of college hockey. Providence College has had Tom Eccleston, who is a living legend. My brother played for him in prep school at the Hill School in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. Zelio Topazzini, Lou Lamorello, Steve Sterling, Mike McShane, Paul Pooley, and Tim Army before Nate Lehman became the coach of Providence. He is, without a doubt, and I don't mean any disrespect to the other guys, it's not even close. He's the best coach they've ever had in terms of winning percentage and national championships. He's the only one that won one.
Yep.
He's the only one that won one. And when he won it, they beat a BU team that had a guy by the name of Jack Eichel on there, Matt Grizzlick on there, and David Quinn, who's coaching in the NHL, was the coach, and they beat him in Boston at Boston Garden, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you can say whatever you want. I'm just telling you, Nate's a really good coach, and I know he's interviewed for NHL jobs. I don't know if any have been offered, but I know he's interviewed for some. Mm-hmm. It's not too far down the road where I think, unless guys don't want to do it, Greg Carville's going to go to the NHL from UMass Amherst. I believe that. Mm-hmm. I believe that Nate Lehman's going to have a chance to go to the NHL if he wants to go. I think there's going to be a new trend, whereas most of the time it's been major junior coaches.
Yep.
I think the NHL is realizing that there's so many guys playing NHL now from college. Mm-hmm. You're going to start to see a trend going. Now, a lot of guys aren't going to leave.
Yeah.
You know, forever, Herb Brooks chose not to leave Minnesota for a reason. Right. It was too good.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a great situation they're in.
You're in charge of your own players.
Yeah.
In the pros, you have to inherit the players that the scouts like, or the GM likes, or the director of player personnel like. So, you know how he was talking about, well, there's sometimes I go watch a guy and my assistants like him, and well, he doesn't pass my eye test.
I loved it.
That was one of the best sound bites we've had on this. He goes,
it was great.
So important. It is so important.
Yeah.
And it's why, you know, when we were trying to come up with a name for this show, I just tell you, every time I went on the road, I didn't care what the stats were. In fact, I learned this from Scotty. Sorry to ramble on. But Scotty Bowman, I never took a program when I'd go into a rink. I would just watch the players because I didn't want to be predisposed to saying, oh, I heard bad things about this guy, or I heard great things about this guy. I wanted to watch him and determine on myself whether I thought 19 was any good, or 24 was any good, or 2 was any good. And then at the end, you go and get a program and say, well, 19 was good, 2 was bad, 24 was good. And you look at their names and say, well, the scouts were right on that guy, they were right on that guy, they were right on that guy, and they were wrong on that guy.
Yeah.
You know? So, you know, I guess one of the best ways to tell you, Jimmy, I'll never forget going to the Christmas tournament at Avon Old Farms. John Gardner was a coach. He still is the coach at Avon Old Farms. Right. Most wins of any prep school coach in New England. Yep. He passed Kenny Martin, who was a living legend. Kenny had 707 at Belmont Hill. What I remember the most, the first time I ever saw, was watching this guy by the name of Leach.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Leach.
Yeah.
It was unfair.
How far ahead it was.
Unfair
Yeah.
how much better he was than the other guys. And then a couple years later, I go up and watch their academy play. And I watched Jeremy Roenick and I watched Tony Amonte.
Yeah.
And
It's
I'm
crazy
going,
that they're on the same line.
this is not even fair.
Yeah. It's like
Jeremy was so much better than the other boys his age.
Yep.
He was so much better. And I'll never forget when Mike Keenan and the Chicago Blackhawks drafted him in the first round. He went, he was supposed to go to play in Hull. And he went to BC for 2 or 3 days. He went to Boston College for like 2 or 3 days. This school stuff's not for me. And he went to Hull. And he had an amazing year. And then all of a sudden you see him playing in the NHL. I mean, that's
a
how
couple
quick
years later in the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I mean, that's how quick the transition went for Jeremy. So it's crazy.
You know what I love too, what he said about when he's doing the eye test and he's going to watch players, Pierre, was just that he'll go back because everybody's going to have a bad game. It can happen. But he wants to go back, and he almost seemed to enjoy that more, to go back to see how the kid responds to the adversity or how he bounces back. And I like that. I caught that, and that seemed to be kind of, a quality of his that that's something that impresses him the most, is not the kids that have it come easy to him, but the kids that have to earn it and the kids that can bounce back from a tough night.
He said one other thing, and again, you're spot on. He said one other thing that really mattered. For your young guy out there, remember what the coach said. Talked about body language.
Yes, huge. I noticed that too.
I was so impressed by that. It's one of the big keys. When I go watch a game, I could see a guy score 3 goals in a game and be rude to his teammates or be rude to the opposition, and have brutal body language, doesn't pay attention to anybody. Or I could see a guy not score anything, and when somebody else scores, he celebrates and he's happy and he's positive. Or the guy that blocks 1 million shots and it doesn't count on the stats, comes to the bench and everybody's high-fiving him. You want to see that. Nobody's bigger than the sum of the team. Nobody.
No, nobody is. It was a good interview. I like him. I've talked to him over the years, interviewed him in scrums, but I never really got to sit down and kind of pick his brain like that. So big thanks to Coach Lehman for coming on here on an on-campus Friday. Yeah. Another good one, Pierre. Let's open up to the questions if we can. Now, I don't know if we have the capability today, just because of some production things going on in Vegas. They are working their tails off here, but there we go. We got some. All right. Marvin Matthews says, Pierre, I'm curious as to how many hockey games, NHL, junior college, you watch or attend during a regular week. I can tell you, Marvin, a lot.
I can't quantify the number. My wife might know better than me, Marvin. But I can just tell you it's a significant amount. And my day starts, very early in the morning. And if I miss something late, I'll go back and watch and break down tape and study trends. I think it's really important, whether it's college, the coach talked about it, major, junior, American League, European games, which you can get now, which is amazing, is studying trends. What's the trend that's going on in the game today, and how would you attack it? How would you stop it?
Mm-hmm.
How would you create another trend to try to shut that down? So I watch a lot of that, but I couldn't give you a number, but it's a lot. It's a lot.
For sure. It's definitely a lot, and I enjoy going back and forth with you as well, Pierre, on a nightly basis. All right, if we have another question there, and if not, we'll finish talking about Martian. I want to bring that up again after. Randy Workman, Jimmy, if you're Leafs GM, do you really sell your future for a run in the playoffs? No, but I think they will. I wouldn't. That's just me personally, because I don't think they can win unless they get a goalie. I don't think they can win the Stanley Cup.
I think they're going to be all in.
I think they are too.
I think it's going to be a roster of people. Let's just say they don't win. Let's just say it's a disappointing spring. There's some big name that's going to be out of there.
Yeah.
So I think they want to try to give those big names every opportunity to try to win this year.
Yeah. They have no choice with the cap.
They really don't. And one of the things that kind of hurt them a little bit, it's not their fault. It hurt a lot of teams. The 2020 draft should have been one of the iconic drafts. I'm telling you, since 03. 03.
I remember you talking about
it. 03 are the best.
Yep.
The 2020 draft got hurt because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of teams weren't able to watch players. A lot of teams relied on numbers rather than the eye test to draft players. And it affected the depth of some of these teams. Now, You know how you recognize it? Right now is when a lot of those players should be turning pro, or they should be making their way through the American League. And you don't see a lot of them coming because some were drafted based on numbers and not the eye test. And so, again, the Leafs were part of that. It's not their fault, by the way. It's not their fault.
No.
There are a lot of teams that are in the same boat. But I think they're going to be aggressive. I do. I think the Leafs are going to be one of the teams that's really aggressive.
See, and here's the thing too, Pierre, I'll expand this, keep it not just staying with the Leafs, but overall, I get the sense, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know why, but I just have a hunch that we're going to see some big player-for-player trades coming up. More than before, more than usual.
No, I think you're right, and part of that is because of the cap.
Of course, yes.
And so even though the cap's going up next year, it's not going up this year. So, Jimmy, I think you're onto something there. I really do. So that's going to be the fun part to watch when you're a fan. If you're a fan, obviously, and fans care. The trade deadline's a big deal for hockey fans. It's a huge deal.
And I think, too, Pierre, before we go to the next question on that topic, just that, you know, when you have to do a trade like that, right, you maybe necessarily don't want to, but the cap is dictating it, and you're winning, and you're doing this to advance and for a shot at the cup, right?
Yep.
It's hard to really gauge which player will have a disruption. Like if he exits this dressing room, is there going to be a void just in terms of emotions and his connections to his teammates? Forget about the skill. And that's something you have to balance as well, is really grasping the atmosphere and the environment around your team and who's who and who does this for the team and who does that. So it's going to be a balancing act for GMs if it comes down to that.
That's so well said. So the one thing I've told you ever since I met you, the GM has to be the most intelligent expert on his team. And if you're a general manager and you think you know, but you don't really know, you're going to be in trouble. So you need to talk to your coaches frankly and openly. You need to know who's the pulse of the dressing room. You need to know who's the pulse on the ice.
Yep.
You know, there's some guys that are really good in the room and they're not so good on the ice.
Right.
And there are other guys that don't say anything in the room, but they get on the ice and they're really good.
Yeah.
And they're also emotional. You got to be really careful. You got to be smart about it, and you got to be an expert on it. And a lot of GMs, they don't always do the proper things, and that's when they make bad trades. More so than not, that's when they make bad trades.
For sure. All right, let's go to the next question. Evan McLaren. Evan's always got good questions here. Last week, Boudreau described how upset his players were when he was let go in Vancouver. I wonder if feeling that they had let a good man down motivated them at all to kick off this season's run. That's a great observation.
I think it's fair.
Yeah.
You, Jimmy, I think it's more than fair. And Evan, thank you so much. And we're glad you're back in Iceland. I hope it's treating you well. I think he was in Portugal not that long ago, getting a little sun. Thank you, Evan. Your questions are awesome. They're highly cerebral, and we appreciate them. Jimmy and I talk about them off the air, so we think they're great. In terms of his question, though, Jimmy, I think that's part of it. I also think aggressive managing by Patrick Alvin and Jimmy Rutherford, bringing in Sam Lafferty. You see some of the players that bring in Ian Cole, players that, again, being experts, they were familiar with those players from Pittsburgh.
Yep.
You look at the guys, Bluger, Teddy Bluger's another one.
That's a big one.
Casey DeSmith's another one. Mark Friedman's another one. They knew all these guys from Pittsburgh. And so they weren't afraid to bring them in because they knew what they did, both with the eye test and the character test. And Rick Tocchet knew them unbelievably well.
Yeah.
So did Sergei Gonchar.
Exactly.
So did Mike Yeo. So that matters. It matters a lot.
Yeah. And Tocchet mentioned that yesterday. I asked him about it. I said, what's it like to to coach for a guy like Jimmy Rutherford, who is always, like we've said it on this show up here many times, and he agreed with me, he always gets ahead of the market. He's going to go get that guy at whatever price it takes. He's going to get him. And he said, it's great. I mean, I just know that I have the people above me are in it to win it no matter what. And that helps me coach. So it's a great thing to have there, that trust that they have going on.
But so just for Evan's question, though, just one more on Evan's question. I do think a lot of the guys in Vancouver were playing guilty. I do. But one of the good things, I think anyways, is Rick came in with enough time to be able to go to Jimmy and say, this guy's good, this guy's not good. We need to get deeper here. We're deep enough there. You know, I think Rick had enough time to decipher the roster, and that really helped getting into this season. It really did.
Yeah, that's huge too. That's a great point by you, Pierre, because I think it's some coaches who don't get named until the off season. And the off season, there really is no off season that much in hockey anymore. With how far into the summers we've been going because of COVID and everything, we're starting to get to normal. But you know what I mean? It goes fast. You don't have that much time to go get to know the guys, and you're also not getting to know them on and off the ice. So I think that's a great point by you. All right, next question. Enter tap. Gentlemen, if you are Kent Hughes, do you trade Savard while his value is high now? And if yes, what do you get in return?
You gotta. I personally wouldn't be afraid to explore the market on David because of the wealth of young defensemen the Canadians have coming.
Yes.
We talk about Lane Hudson. He doesn't do what David Savard does. But could Logan Mayhew potentially do that? Could William Trudeau potentially do that? I mean, start looking at some of the guys they have down on the farm. Could Justin Barron do that?
Yep.
I think they've already established that Jaden Strubl's an NHL defenseman. I think they've established Jordan Harris as an NHL defenseman. I think they've established that Caden Gooley's going to be an elite defenseman in the NHL. So they're dealing from a position of strength. So I think what you have to look at is, okay, let's look at different defensemen that have been moved. Vancouver made a deal with Calgary, for a big defenseman, Zadorov. What was the payoff? Is Savard better than him? Does Savard have a little bit more upside? He's got championship pedigree. He's been part of winning the Stanley Cup. So, does he bring a little bit more, or is that going to be the price? What Zadorov got Calgary, is that going to be the price for what Montreal gets for Savard? So that's where the management comes in on asset management, excuse me.
So, Pierre, let me ask you this, too. And we just talked about Jimmy Rutherford setting the market, right, or getting ahead of the market. So Hughes' last move when he dealt Monahan was a reaction to the Lindholm move, right? We'd agree.
For Winnipeg,
yeah, Winnipeg, right?
They haven't won a game in a while.
Yeah.
They haven't scored a goal in a while either.
But the teams, what I want to get to is, so you're Kent Hughes. You're not a team that's, trying to make additions for the playoffs. You're trying to unload and build up, stock up the system and get ahead. Maybe, obviously, I would imagine some of these draft picks that he's stockpiling, he can use as collateral as well in trades. Do GMs in his spot set the market, or do they wait for the teams that are competing for the playoffs to set the market?
It depends if you have a real good trading friend or not. I don't know who Kent. We should have asked Kent this. I don't know, but he was an agent, so he had to deal with all the general managers in the league.
I think that helps him.
Yeah, I think it does. Or if you had an acrimonious negotiation, it could hurt him. I'll use an example. I was part of the Brady Tkachuk negotiation that got him his contract in Ottawa. And I would say that negotiation, there was some really acrimonious times, and there were some amazingly positive times. And so eventually I think everybody left feeling pretty good about it, whether it was Craig Oster or Donnie Meehan or Patrick Morris, who were representing him for Newport Sports, or Peter McTavish, or the former general manager in Ottawa, or myself. We all felt, pretty good about it.
Right.
When it was all said and done. But I can tell you there were parts, Jimmy, in that negotiation that were pretty acrimonious. And that's hard because I'm really good friends with all three of the guys at the table.
It happens. It really does. I mean, even like, who was it recently? Why am I drawing a blank here, Pierre? There's a player that said it was Swayman. When we remember a couple weeks back, and he said, I wouldn't wish that on any other NHL player or my worst enemy. He's talking about going through the talks and arbitration, which I know can get very
it's a lot more civilized now, Jimmy, than what it was. I can tell you right now. I mean,
it was brutal back in the day, from what I heard. Ask Joe Juno.
Harry Sinnen did a number on Joe.
Yeah.
But, Harry was just so much more prepared than anybody else, and he was draconian. He worked for his owner. He worked for his organization. He didn't care what other people thought.
Yep.
That's one of the things I really respected about Mr. Sinnen was his whole thing was about doing well for the Jacobs, the Bruins fans, and for the organization. That was his thing. And it worked. Hey, heck, it worked for the guy.
Yeah.
It worked for him. Unbelievable. But I would tell you this, not everybody would be comfortable doing that.
No.
I remember sitting in an arbitration in a hotel room, and the player was sitting in the room, and I was not comfortable at all. Because
Yeah.
later that night I had to coach the player,
Yeah.
so
You got to be honest as well.
yeah, I mean, so you're sitting there and you're like, wow, I'm not sure I really want to do that. So it's changed a lot since then. They've kind of taken some of the management people out of the whole thing, and now it's more lawyerly than it was back then. But boy, it was tough. Arbitration was tough.
I bet. All right, we got time for about 2 more here. Have either of you seen any of Patrick Waugh's post-game press conferences? Very impressed by his attention to detail and the way he breaks down the game for journalists. Yes, and I love his personality in it too. He's really hitting a home run so far, in my opinion.
This is an example, Marvin, of somebody who learned.
Marvin Matthews, by the way.
Yeah, great question. This is an example of somebody that learned from their first time.
Mm-hmm.
And he was funny when he was a player because he was the best player.
Oh yeah,
and so he could do that.
He could be cocky.
But when he came in as a coach, he tried to bring that same stuff to the party, and he wasn't the best coach because he didn't have the experience to be the best coach. And he learned. Then he went back and did his chores in the Quebec Major Junior League, and he won a whack of games. He was really good. And I think he learned. He studied. And I have so much respect for what Patty's done with his life and with his career now. Tons of respect for that. It's not easy to do. Another guy that did that, Alain Vigneault. I'm just telling you. After he got fired by Montreal, he went back, worked in the Quebec Major Junior League. Then he went and coached the American League with Manitoba. Then he got his big break in Vancouver and took the Canucks to, a Game 7 in 2011. So I would like to think if I had another chance to be a head coach that I would be better dealing with the media and better dealing with my players than maybe I was when I was 32.
Yeah.
Coming off of 2 Stanley Cups and thinking everything you do is right and everything somebody else does is wrong.
Yeah.
Because you've won. What do you have left to prove? Well, you got a lot left to prove, I can tell you. And you learn from that. And I think I really learned from that. I really do.
I can say I do the same in my journalism career. You go through things and maybe it comes a little too easy at first and you get a little comfortable. You can't get that way. By the way, I see Entertap and Randy Workman bantering back and forth about Jacob Markstrom. And yes, Randy, you're absolutely right. So I don't know if you heard, Pierre, they called up Wolf.
I'm aware. Today. Yeah.
Vladar went on IR, but they were wondering if maybe there was something going on with a move coming with Markstrom. But no, it's just Vladar is on IR. They called up the rookie, and he'll be in there.
Hey, Jimmy, I'll tell you one thing right now. They got to win in New Jersey last night, and I know they obviously got to win in Boston 2 nights before. If they don't have Markstrom in goal, especially at the beginning of that game, Calgary gets ripped apart.
Yeah.
That guy stood on. He stabilized the whole game.
He's quietly on a nice little string here. I was researching for the Bruins Flames game, right? And I was really surprised to see his goals against and his save percentage was just astronomical over his last 7 starts.
What?
Really talking about it.
No, they're not. They're not because they're obviously not in the playoffs right now, but they're starting to push, which is great. The one thing I'd say, I'm really happy. And this is a great. We're talking about college coaches getting opportunities, which I think is going to happen. Mm-hmm. Ryan Husk is a great example of a guy that earned his spot. I remember when Mark Habscheid was coaching in Kelowna, he used to bring me in to run some practices. And Ryan Huska was one of the assistant coaches. He couldn't have been more gracious because I was kind of coming in just as a hired gun to have some fun with the players and push them and be the dark doctor, not the nice doctor, the dark doctor. And we had phenomenal. I just loved it. My time there ownership was great.
Oh, that's great.
The coaches were great. I just had a blast going on the ice when I was out in Kelowna. And Ryan was one of the guys there. So when I see him, I'm going, he worked his way. This was when I was there, it was 25 years ago, 20 years ago. This guy worked his tail off to get this chance. Yep. And he's getting the chance, and he's doing a real good job with it.
Considering everything that's happened with that team. Yeah, he is. He is. Deserves a lot of credit.
I'm so happy for him. You love it when you see guys like that get the opportunity and take advantage of it.
Yep, for sure. That we do. All right, one more question here, and we'll close her up. All right, Paige Perlo Wisdom, is the buzz around Zegras legit? I think so.
I think so too. Pat.
I don't know if he gets moved now, but it is.
Yeah, that might be a draft day type of deal if he does. But Patty's really a fan of hard hockey, tough guy. It doesn't mean Trevor can't play hard or isn't tough. I'm not saying that. He's just a different kind of a player. He's not what Patty Verbeek was. And I think your friendship with Greg Cronin, the head coach there, would tell you that Crow has a certain way he sees players.
Yeah.
I just know Craig was a really tough guy. And so I kind of get,
Yeah.
know what he's thinking.
And he's
So-
not going to take any BS.
No. So again, we'll see how it plays out. I don't think there's anything imminent right now, but
Me too.
going forward, Jimmy, I think you and I both are on the same page. Anaheim's going to be a tough team to play against. They got a whack of guys coming. I mean, they're still too young to win, but they got a whack of guys coming. They've done it even before Patty got there. They did some really good drafting.
They are so stacked up the middle going forward here, and that's what Cup teams do. They're stacked up the middle, so they're going to be a fun team to watch. Well, listen, we want to thank Providence College head coach Nate Lehman for joining us here on Campus Friday. Thank our production crew out in Las Vegas, and thanks to you, the viewers and the listeners, for participating as well. And Pierre, enjoy those games this weekend. Go Colgate.
Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate it. Looking forward to next week. We got some we always do this every Friday, but we got some hot guests on the line.
Yep.
You just have to reel them in, Jimmy.
Yes, we will. We will. And I'm looking forward to Monday too, Pierre. Hopefully I'll see you.
Bean pod.
We'll hit the bean pod.
Action, yeah. I got
All
my
right,
tickets
sounds
today,
good.
so I'm looking forward to that.
All right. Well, enjoy the hockey this weekend, everyone. This has been another edition of the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.